interview. We're very lucky we have Richard Smith here from RSBA Technology Limited. He's a business analyst, and he also says he's maybe also a value requirements engineer. Is that correct?
Amongst many other things, yeah.
Yes. We're gonna talk about Richard. He has done lots of interesting things with ValueFirst, and we're gonna try to see if we can learn something from Richard today and his experience through many years actually of not only using the techniques in various projects, but he's also built a fantastic tool that 100% supports the ValueFirst method. So we're going to be talking about that. Now, before we start, Richard, let's see who is Richard. Now, take me back to when you're a kid.
Okay.
12 years old or something like that, right? Where were you living?
I was in east of London, a place called Upminster in Essex, yeah.
And what did you like to do as a kid?
Code.
Code, already. So
Yeah.
So when did you actually start coding?
Yeah, well, I got I was very fortunate to get my first ZX81 Sinclair computer when I was 12 years old, I think. So it had 1K of memory.
Yeah.
And there was a whole generation in the 80s of UK programmers that started their whole careers by getting this little ZX81 machine, right? Had 1K of memory, and used to get magazines from shops, and you could literally just sit there and type out the program in the magazine to do a little game or something. And that was how I learnt programming, in my bedroom with a old black and white fuzzy TV connected to it, and I ended up getting a whole career out of that.
That's great. I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but I know that lots of things happens when you are 12, right?
Yeah.
Or plus or minus a few years, so it is with you too, right? Now who inspired you at that time? Was it a parent? Uncle or aunt, or
just in general, or, yeah.
Yeah, like who?
It's really interesting, actually. I suppose different influences. I was also really interested in science, astronomy.
Yeah.
So my father made this amazing homemade telescope, a 6-inch Newtonian reflector. We bought the optics, but he made the tube out of beautiful wood and mechanics out of Meccano. He was is still a very practical person, and so I think my early influences were people like Carl Sagan, the great science communicators in the 70s and 80s, really certainly inspired me, and people like Patrick Moore. So Patrick Moore, the late great departed Patrick Moore, the UK British astronomer. I met him personally. At least once, I think, and he was just those kind of inspiring people or a young aspiring scientist, I guess, at the time.
So and then I'm guessing you did regular public school or some schooling.
Yeah.
But then at some point you made a choice in school.
Yeah.
What was your first school where you actually chose the school? And what was that?
Well, I mean, I went to a school in Upminster, a great school, and did my O-levels and A-levels. I knew I was going to be doing something numerate, so I decided when I went to university to do physics, mainly because it meant that I didn't have to make a choice, because once you do physics you can do so many other things when you graduate, so it kept lots of doors open. So I actually ended up doing physics with computing, because I was particularly interested in the application of computing to something, rather than just studying computing in its own right as a tool without any context or use. Right. So that was always, as it still is the application of computing to solving real problems, and I think that's a theme that's gone all the way through my career, actually.
That's interesting. It seems to me like a lot of people, they learn things, they go to school and they learn things without context.
Right.
And it seems to be a big mistake, of how the schools are set up.
Yeah.
Where
For sure.
I think
just facts in isolation.
Right.
application of those.
Exactly, and then it gets interesting, and then you can go deep, right?
And solve real problems. Right?
Yeah, and solve real problems. You get that interest, not just this thing you have to learn and pass a test or something, but you really understand what it's good for. Fantastic. Okay, and then what was your first job?
First paying job, right?
Yeah, your first paying job.
I'm not sure how much I can talk about that because I had to sign the official secrets act. But it was a real-time software engineering job working for a company that was doing work for the British military. So I did that for 4 years. But it was an absolutely fantastic education in software engineering, right? So it was safety critical. If we did the job wrong, people would get killed. If we did things right, people would get killed. That's why I didn't do it for very long. But it was a great. Actually, I remember my first actual posting once I'd done the initial training. I wanted to just get on and start coding. It was in Ada, which was this sort of very popular language in the early 90s, and but I was really disappointed because they said, no, we don't want you to start coding, which is what I really wanted to do. We want you to go and work in the quality department, and I didn't even know what they did. Who are these guys? Right? Quality department? That's not coding, right? And I went there, so I wasn't happy, but I was there for 3 months, the first 3 months, and I didn't do any coding, but I learned so much. In retrospect, it was fantastic 3 months because I wasn't coding, I was learning about what is quality. It's about conformance to requirements, and it was about their task was to provide quality assurance across the whole project, and I just started getting an inkling of what that was all about, which was actually turned out to be a brilliant first 3 months in the career before I just got stuck into the cool stuff.
Do you remember like one thing? I mean, maybe you had many things, but one thing that you could share with us that you remember, that you sort of learned, that was like, wow, this is really powerful or great or
I think that's what I said. It was learning that what is quality. How do you define quality? It's conformance to requirements. Right. So it has to, whatever the thing is, it has to do what it has to do, but no more. Right? That's the definition of quality. What else is there? And I think that was definitely the thing that I remember now from that.
You also said you emphasized. I noticed you emphasized the word engineering, right? As opposed to just building something, I'm guessing. Yeah. So, same question, kind of. What's one thing that sort of makes it engineering, or what is this engineering thing? So
certainly, I think the impression I got it's not coding, right? That's for sure. Coding is just the physical execution of the thing that will make the system do what you want to do. Software, but the engineering is the whole context of other activities, planning, design around it. But specifically engineering is about, first of all, deciding where you want to go, right? First, which is a lot of coding don't do that. They just do coding, throw stuff against the wall, and whatever happens, right? So engineering is purposely moving towards some kind of predetermined goal, and that's the difference between coding or hacking and software engineering.
Right.
The key difference.
Now, at some point, you got into project management. You've done some project management.
Yeah.
Where did that interest or direction come from?
So, I guess in the first 10 years of my career, I moved to 3 or 4 different companies. Ended up going into the city in the mid-90s. So I've been there ever since. But
working with the banks?
Or software companies at the time that were working for banks. And I deliberately set out in the first 10 years to try to experience all the different roles in a typical software lifecycle, right? So started off with coding, and then I did testing for 2 years, and then I moved into project management and then product management. So I kind of goal, and I sort of achieved that in the first 10 years. I'd been paid to do each of the sort of major roles in a software development life cycle. And after that, I decided that the best one I found most interesting was business analysis, or the bit where you have your feet in both camps. You can talk to coders in their language, and you can talk to the traders in the city in their language, and that's a very valuable and actually fairly rare skill to be able to do that translation and that understanding between both very different worlds.
Right. Which is also where you're still working today, offering services today. Anyone interested in somebody really skilled in both, the coding side and the business analyst, the business side, we'll provide links. You can contact Richard and get the benefits of his services. Yeah. We might get back to that. But what was your first encounter to Guild and what I now call ValueFirst, but language, competitive engineering, whatever what was your first encounter to us?
I remember it very well. I remember meeting you and your father. So I was working for for Citigroup. It was called Citigroup at the time, now called Citi. And I was working in their electronic foreign exchange front office IT team in Canary Wharf. And one of the big IT bosses had decided that, I don't know how he met Tom, but he decided that he was going to train, I think, quite hundreds of people, certainly in London. I don't know if you ended up going to the States.
We did.
Yeah.
To New York.
So he trained all the IT, and I think it was a whole week, right? So it was a whole week of going through the whole thing of requirements and Evo. So he did the whole the whole thing in 5 days, and it just clicked straight away. And now looking back, I think I was intuitively doing some of those things, many of those things already, but I hadn't systemized it and really thought about it in a systematic way.
Right.
Which I think it's because of my physics and scientific background. It's effectively it's the scientific method of having some theory. I think if we do this, then we think it's going to happen, but then we do it, and then we test and measure to see if we did it. That's science, right?
Right.
So I think that's certainly my experience with people that have gone through that type of education seem to get these ideas more intuitively than people that haven't perhaps had that kind of background.
Right. Which is a lot what we're, a lot of people we run into, great people learning the methods, but we also notice this, if they come from, let's call it a pure software background, it's a little more foreign, these ideas, and they're struggling a little more, and they think, we're doing good, and then guys who come more from science, engineering background have a little easier to
it comes back to that idea of why you're doing the software. It's because you really want to solve problems. That's really the whole point, right? So we had that initial course, and
5 days, right?
And my guesstimate is that probably, out of the 20 people I think were in my course, I think I'm the only one who actually sort of took away after the course and said, right, this is great, I'm going to actually try to do some of these things on this project. Right. Fortunately, it was just at the start of a two and a half year project. That was a really big, risky technology migration to a new platform for the bank. And if it had gone wrong, it would have been a big disaster. I mean, billions of dollars captured in the system that would have been difficult to manage if it hadn't gone right. So immediately after the course had a really interesting problem where the penalty of failure would have been high. So therefore, it was well worth experimenting with new management analysis techniques, because the risk of failure was potentially high. So we had to ensure success by all means necessary.
Right. Yeah. So you started then using these ValueFirst techniques. Called the competitive engineering or language at the time. But and how did it go? What was number one mistake you did? Forget how well it went.
Right, okay.
What was one thing can you think of one thing that didn't go well, or that you were struggling with, or that was difficult?
That's interesting.
What was the difficulty?
Oh yes, well the difficulty was the bank, in their infinite wisdom, had mandated that across an IT organisation of 5,000 people working on all sorts of different projects, that there will be one way of managing software projects, right? And they called it the SDLC, Software Development Lifecycle. And they'd obviously paid consultants or someone to create this whole web-based, intranet-based management system to manage your projects, right? But it was essentially a horrendous bureaucratic waterfall type model, right? Which was completely the antithesis of the ValueFirst ideas of Evo and trying to work out what you can deliver early. So the biggest issue was being allowed to run the project the way that we knew we wanted it and was appropriate to the project, but being allowed to do that by the IT powers that be, who wanted us to follow their tick box approach to the project management. Right. So we actually ended up as a whole team deciding it was worthwhile effectively wasting one person full time in our project support office to make our project, which is iterative and look like this waterfall model, right?
You think the waterfall.
So this poor person,
Yeah.
and it was valuable because it kept them off our back, and we
Right.
actually, the business didn't care, right? They saw us delivering stuff and they were going great, but they said, but the IT powers that be won't let us do that. So we said, right, well, you've got to make it happen. So we effectively made our Evo Agile process look like waterfall to the rest of the IT world, and that worked really well. But that was probably the trickiest bit. It was overcoming
the cultural,
and the sort of one-size-fits-all approach, which you see over and over again. Everyone keeps saying, oh, in this organisation we must have one, define our process, right? As if there's only one process for all different ways of doing it. It's a crazy idea, but it makes it look good on a PowerPoint, right? Here's our process.
And I've talking to you actually, you were saying yesterday at the workshop we were at, I think you kept that strategy for several other projects where you,
oh, for sure,
the cohort or whatever it's called, ValueFirst, and then sometimes you pretend like you're doing something else, and that seems to work.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been employed as a ValueFirst expert. I'm employed to write foreign exchange trading systems, right?
Right.
But as a consultant, so they employ me for my expertise, both in my domain technical, but also my management expertise. So I've never had anyone say, no, you don't do what you're doing, even though it looks really effective. I want you to use this other waterfall thing. Maybe I've been lucky. I reckon it's probably the area of the bank that I work in is probably the most amenable to do that, because I work with the business rather than the IT people.
Right.
So you get more. They don't care.
Well, they care about
as long as they get the delivery and the value.
That was going to be my next question.
How you do it, right?
So did you manage to give them great value?
Oh yeah. I mean, that first project I was describing, it was actually a big bang approach. So even though 14 months out we said, can we do this piecemeal? Can we do it just for London and then Hong Kong and then Singapore?
So
it turned out for various interesting reasons that you had to do the whole global thing in one go.
Yeah.
So that was the most scary weekend of my entire professional career. In that one weekend, we literally turned the old global system off, migrated all the data, and we had to transform it in different ways to the new database, and then fire that up, and then traders in Asia would then start using it. We got away with it. That's certainly the biggest scary moment in my career, but it worked. And we got comments from the head of global trading saying it was the best IT go live they'd ever experienced.
Yeah. That's pretty.
Yeah, I can source that if anyone disagrees that, but
No, that's.
So it was great.
Yeah.
And in fact, the only thing that screwed up was a Cisco router somewhere. Completely somewhere deep in the infrastructure went pop about 6 hours into it's just complete coincidence, but it took us out for about 2 hours, and we were all, this was like 3 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning or something.
Time for a panic.
Yeah. But it wasn't anything to do with us. It really, I think they sort of let us off that one.
And then, so that sounds great. Now, then moving on. So you've done other projects. So can you mention another project you've done using these techniques?
Yeah, sure. So another bank I then have been working with for about 7-8 years on and off now. They brought me in because they realised their existing trading system was actually the first one they had, but wasn't going to scale. So there was a scaling problem, there's a performance problems, and they knew. In fact, they kind of knew that it was going to hit that anyway, but they didn't matter at the time because they just wanted to get something up and running. So it wasn't an unexpected issue. So it was kind of planned. But they knew they had to go order of magnitude, more scalability, because they wanted to create a global system rather than a regional ones. So they hired me because I was familiar with one of the key technologies that they decided to use to enable this scalability to happen. So I had experience of that, and they'd also worked with me at previous banks, so they knew that I could actually deliver stuff, right? Which helps. So the first project was actually partly they had to basically have a proof of concept of this new technology in the bank because they hadn't seen this technology before, and also they wanted to actually deliver something as part of that, to actually say that we have actually helped some traders, even in the first 3 months of this technology, we helped them a little bit. So my first job was to put this project together, right? And I said, well, as we're prototyping technology and looking at a prototype business problem, let's prototype the way we manage the project as well. So I managed it using actually quite a classical ValueFirst language. Management and approach, yeah. So I went through who the stakeholders. We interviewed some of the key stakeholders, got their functions, what their values were, what the constraints were, what their solution ideas were. But we split them all. We captured that all, but then split it all out. And that took about a week, and we came up with what they called a project initiation document. So you had to have that to be able to get the green light to go ahead and spend the next 3 months of budget on it, right? So we did that, but they hadn't seen anything of that kind of information in this kind of document before, and they seemed to really like it. It's very clear and concise what they wanted to achieve.
And did you manage to deliver value to these stakeholders?
Yeah. So, and the first step. We were expecting like 2-week cycles. It ended up the first step was actually 2 days. Yeah,
2 days value cycle.
Yeah, because we looked at the value, we sat down, did some brainstorming about solutions, and then somebody came up with the idea of the details now, but essentially put a little Windows back script on a system admin's desktop so that when something happened and the traders had to shut something down, rather than scrabbling around for passwords, they could literally say, "Hey, can you just go and press that, double-click that icon on your desktop, and it would do the action."
What would be the value? What was it before, and what was it after?
So it would have taken about 10 minutes. So something goes wrong in the trading system,
right?
And up to that point, it would have taken about 10 minutes on average for them to finally shut it down, right? That particular
function. So something goes wrong, and and then when it goes wrong, lots of data is captured and it's wrong data, right?
This was actually bad prices going out to customers, and we were trading on it, right? So they could be losing money.
It's not a good thing at all, right? Yeah. And then it would take 10 minutes for them to stop it. It would just go, and then and then you provided this 2-day thing you made in 2 days, which was a kill switch.
Yeah. And what was interesting is that was not using this new technology that it was supposed to be using, right?
Right.
Anyone could have written that little 10-line script in the last 4 years, right? But no one did.
Why?
Yeah.
Because they didn't focus.
Absolutely. Yeah.
On the value,
and
right?
That proved the technique right there, right? It's like I remember sitting in the meeting saying, with the teams, and this is really interesting because I only just recently joined the bank, so I was trying to be a bit diplomatic. But I said, what is it about the approach that we've just gone through that made you come up with this idea that anyone could have come up with in the last 4 years, but no one did, right? And
they were asking you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was asking them actually, saying,
okay.
why didn't
Yeah,
what is it about the thing that I've just done new that you haven't done?
This is the
And
power.
it was the fact that because we were focusing on this value of time to correct, the bad prices, and no one really focused on that as a specific goal,
right?
Which they could then innovate to think of how to get that
right. And I like to sort of.
It's a simple example, but it's very powerful.
It's very powerful. And I like to focus, do you know how to deliver on time, on budget, and high value, right? Now, on time and on budget, 2 days you delivered.
Yeah.
Value,
in fact, it would have been
right?
1 day, but the bank's policy said you have to have 24 hours cool-off period, any change in production. So we could have done it 1 day, but the bank said you have to.
So I could ask, well, did you deliver on time, under budget, to high quality value? I don't have to ask that. 2 days, nothing,
and then it went from 10 minutes to 4 minutes. Just
fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, what was in that project? What was a mistake that you did? I like people like that. Like we have all these great things that happen, but in there, part of the reasons doing things in cycles is that we can allow for mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Because let's say you do a cycle and it doesn't work, it's a short piece of the whole, so you can recover and you haven't lost all your resources, all your time. Well, so it's okay. So what was it like a mistake?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it was necessarily a mistake, but essentially after that initial success, and we did another one, a short one, then we actually got onto the new technology, which was going to take a lot longer. It took about 6 weeks.
Right.
So we split it up into 2-week iterations, and we delivered something at the end of that. After that, our budget ran out, but they said let's carry on with the prototype. Because we still want to explore this new technology. So we ended up then doing 4 more weeks, and then they said stop. So we hadn't actually delivered anything, right? Because they'd changed their mind from 4 weeks ago, saying, "Oh yeah, I think we've seen this, seen enough now. Let's go and do the real thing, right?" Okay. So then let's stop planning, and then I've been there 7 years after that, sort of executing on the big thing, right? So I guess. I wouldn't say it was a mistake. It was a learning, right? So it's more when we started that thing 4 weeks, we hadn't, as a collective team, reached that understanding that we'd already really done enough, right?
Right.
So we did another 4 weeks, although some of that work was a bit throwaway, but some of it was.
So what should you? To be clear, what should you have done? In hindsight, now that you've learned this.
Well, I'm not sure at the point when we made that decision to do another 4 weeks, anyone could have, to the best of our knowledge at that time, that was what they thought they wanted to do. But perhaps we could have been more pushed back from an IT point of view and said, no, I really think that's it. We have proved it. Perhaps we didn't present the learnings from the technology to the business strong enough that we could say, look, as far as we're concerned, it's proved. So why do any more proof of concept? Let's get on and do the real thing. Right.
So I'm a little slow, right? That. So so let me just clarify this. So you had you needed to do a proof of concept, and you went on for 4 weeks.
Well, actually, we'd already delivered sort of phase 1 of the proof of concept. So that was using new technology. But then when the budget ran out, rather than saying, let's stop the proof of concept now and move on to the big system, they said, let's carry on. There was a stretch goal, if you like, or there was some extra functionality we could build into this proof of concept.
So you should have ended that proof of concept earlier and get on with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Although in the end, it was 4 weeks, and we'd probably maybe only wasted a week of that effort that didn't end up in the final system, so it wasn't right.
And the final system was full of value or not?
It's still up running now. It's now running in about 6 different data centers around the world.
Yeah.
It's processing huge number of volume of trades that they were doing before, and now the team's got bigger, and there's lots of other people now building functions onto this core platform. But the core platform is engineered really well, so it hasn't degraded. So as we add in more functions, it's not degrading performance and availability. So the client's really happy with it. I hope that's why they keep hiring me again.
Great, fantastic. That's what I want to hear. Okay, so that sounds really great. Now, Richard has developed a fantastic tool that is called Needs and Means. And actually, I was thinking, this would maybe be like the coming out. What we're going to do is we're going to collaborate, pending some agreements that we have to finalize, right? So maybe not, but pending, 99% sure that we're going to go forward with this. That we're going to collaborate on his tool. So he's built a fantastic tool with his company. Now, why build a tool, and what's the tool do?
Right.
Sorry. What tool? Tool for what?
So
and why build it?
So the tool allows you to use some of the language techniques of requirements and value tables.
He says some of them, but it's
really a lot of them, many of them, not all of them.
100%, right? It's really good stuff.
Yeah. Because I've been using techniques that we've been talking about for about 10 to 13 years, but have no specific dedicated tool to help you through that process and do lots of the housekeeping and management of the data. So I've used Microsoft Word, Excel, Confluence, Wikis, right?
And that works,
they work, but they're general purpose tools. Yeah. If you want to transfer information from a Word document with some scales into a value table, it's literally copy and paste, and there's lots of duplication data. And then when things change, it's really difficult to keep track of that, right? In Word documents and Excel. Which the problem with that is it meant that it kind of constrains how much value you can get out of using language on a specific project, because the overheads of then doing those processes become prohibitively high compared with the resources you've got to do management rather than getting on and do stuff.
Right.
So it's kind of like put a glass ceiling on how much we can adopt language and then use it through the life of a project that goes on for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right?
Right.
So that was the sort of the one reason. So I was able to stop work for a few months. I realised I couldn't do it just at weekends. It had to have to bootstrap it to kick it off. I had to really go and hide away at home for 3 months and just focus on it and just try to experiment really to see if it was possible to build a specific language. I called it an opinionated tool. So there's lots and lots of different requirement management tools out there, none that are specific and constrain you to use language concepts, and that's really what I wanted to do. Plus I wanted to upskill myself in the latest web technology, because the last time I really did web tech was 20 years ago in the first .com boom. It's moved on a lot, and so partly it was that, and partly I wanted to sort of upskill on the latest web technology. So I put both together. So
and then for a few months now, Richard and I, we've been collaborating, working out, because I work a lot holding courses and working out how to make this tool sort of even easier to use. It's already easy to use, but like really, really powerful. Tom and I, we find this tool really powerful. We love this tool. So we're now going into a collaboration where I've guided a little bit the latest sort of development, and we're now at a stage where it is super easy to use. It is extremely powerful. It supports anybody who wants to do value first. It supports the whole process from, just everything there. So, we'll talk more about that. It's coming up. So it will be called ValPlan. The new sort of version of the tool will be called ValPlan, and we'll be offering that from our website and basically to all users of value planning. It's really exciting, and it's really it's really going to be a strong support for anybody who wants to follow up with these techniques.
Right.
They don't just have a blank sheet like a Word document and maybe look something on the book. It'll be like right there, where are the functions, where are the values, how do they connect, what about solutions, how do they connect, and connecting them all together in the value decision tables, value delivery cycles. It's all in there, and with
plus you get the advantages of all of that functionality built on a modern web technology platform. So you can run it on any modern browser. It's all real time, so multiple people can collaborate. If someone does a change, you don't have to refresh your browser; you see it immediately. So it's really focused on collaboration, communication, which is really the whole point of writing requirements anyway. It's a communication exercise, right? So it's trying to leverage some of that great new technology as well.
Excellent, and also with you built in lately, the ability to export has been really important for our beta testers. That users that they can export their work, so that's built
so you
in.
Can export to Word, or you can export now to sort of machine readable files. So you can export all the data we've got in your database, so you can suck it into another tool.
Fantastic. And another thing that's been important is that the security of it. Could you mention one or two things that you've done architectural wise to make the system secure?
Yeah.
It's not running in your basement.
No, that's right. So the system is currently in the beta version, and certainly will be in the ValuePlan commercial version. It's hosted on state-of-the-art platforms that host the infrastructure.
Can you name some of them?
The database provides Compose.io, which is IBM, and the application servers run on Amazon, actually by a company called Meteor, which is part of the technology that I built it on. So they host all the servers, scale it, look after it. I don't know how to do that, but get the right people to do that. The database in the system is actually one single database, but it's all partitioned up logically in the way that the software's been written, so that it's multi-tenant. So different companies can put the data in the same database, but there's no way in way the company A being able to look at the data in company B. That's certainly one way of doing it. The other way, if people really have issues on security, then technically we have the capability of creating a completely separate instance, either in the cloud or even in their own premises, if they really were, like military or some government. We'll have to think about that. But technically, I chose the platform to be able to do that.
Exactly.
So it's
all right. So we will get back. This we'll get back. There'll be lots of information about what will be called ValuePlan. Really exciting to let people loose using that tool. Now, let's move on from that. Now, to end this, I think it's been really good talking to you. Just why should people use ValueFirst? I mean, there are so many options. You could, there are all kinds of popular agile techniques out there. There are the more traditional techniques, and then we have this ValueFirst. Just one point to why is that? Why is that powerful?
I mean, the best way I can answer that is really just based on my own experience. I have had a lot of success in projects over sort of 20 years using these techniques. And for me, it's a toolbox, right? So unlike these other techniques that you talked about, some of which, like this scaled agile, safe framework I've seen recently, it's really going almost back to the sort of very sort of tick box, 3-ring binder, mechanicistic way of doing project management, right? Allow you to think. Whereas ValueFirst is really a toolbox of techniques, so you can take one thing out of it, or you can do more comprehensive set of it, depending on your comfort, your comfort with the technique, and but it also integrates really well. So if you use ValueFirst, you can still do Scrum, you can still do Kanban, you can still do Waterfall, right?
Yeah.
If you,
but what's the added
if
benefit?
you have to. So the added benefit, I call it putting a brain on Agile, right?
Brain on Agile. I love that.
Right,
I never
yeah.
heard that before.
Yeah.
Brain on Agile.
Because it's all about making sure whatever you're doing, right, however you do it with Waterfall or Scrum, you're aiming at a well-defined goal, right?
Yeah.
That's engineering, and I think that's what ValueFirst, that's its real value is helping you systematically achieve, A, understand what you want to achieve, and B, help you track your progress towards that. I mean,
right.
what else is project management about other than that, right?
Yeah.
Right. And
Tell me
many
about
of these other techniques, they talk a lot about the mechanics of doing, right? But they kind of just pass over, or they mention in passing, or out of a 100-page book, they might have one page on what you do to think about what prioritization or requirements, right?
So thank you. Now, Richard is a real resource. So I really want you guys to reach out to Richard and use him. So what services do you offer anybody who would like to get some help with any of their projects?
So I'm a sort of independent, my own company. Although I spent a lot of time in the city working on trading systems, I'm also looking at opportunities to do shorter consultancy based on ValueFirst, where I can come in and help you, benefit my real practical experience on complex multi-team, multi-year projects on how to set this up. Plus, and obviously, if you're interested in using the software, I can help you integrate that into your workflow.
Yeah.
And I just really want to see if my experience can translate into success in other companies. Right? It's really interesting to see that.
And how would people reach you?
I've got my own sort of company website, which is rsbatechnology.co.uk.
Okay, we'll put a link for that. Somewhere.
And from there you can reach me on LinkedIn and Twitter and email. And there's some case studies on there that I've written up. Some of the things we've been talking about are written up on there, so you can see some more detail.
All right. So, don't be shy. Contact Richard. He's really a gold mine. I mean, he has all this ValueFirst knowledge. He has done many courses actually with Tom and me. We just did one a couple of last days. So he has all the theoretical knowledge, but he has also tons of actual practical, doing it for real, in real projects, big and small. So, use him. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
Fantastic to that you share your experience. Thank you so much.
Thanks.